And good morning, Sword Family. That sounds very odd to say. You be quiet. I put you on silent. Time for our monthly tea time again. And I am very, very, very pleased to finally have a fellow Chinese practitioner that I'm sure if people haven't heard of him before our time is done, there will be an uptick in subscribers. But first, as always, comments. Oh, wow, there's more people than I expected. Nice. And first to the door is my lovely Foxy. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Teahouse. Please like, share, and subscribe. She is right on top of it today. She's stealing Donna's job. Of course, we didn't expect Donna to be here, so we'll see. Please enjoy our special start time. Yeah, it's definitely odd, but it's worth it. Trust me. And Kitty is joining us. Morning, everyone. Hello, Kitten. And Ruby is joining us. Hey, all. Hello, Ruby. Ladies' Day so far. Yeah. And Trey is joining us. So more estrogen in the room. Currently on the road, but we'll catch what we missed on the rerun. Okay, that's cool. Hopefully the moron who put cold food in the hot storage box in 91-degree heat got reamed for that one, because that's not good. And greeting for Trey. And Midnight is joining us over on Twitch. Hey, Midnight. Drive safe, yeah. Trying to get errands done before the heat, but it's already 91. What is it now? Let me see. 82? But you're, what, an hour or two ahead of us? So, yeah, it's like almost noon for you guys. Yes, it was right. And there is Aunt Donna greeting all of the other women. Oh, man. There's a lot of women. I'm in trouble. Okay, good. There's Carl. There's Carl. Okay. Did someone say there were ladies around here? Lots of them. And good morning, and more greetings, and more greetings. Glad to see you all. Yes, I'm very impressed that more people than I expected actually showed up. And they're chatting it up. Should be a good show. Yeah, sometime I honestly wonder if I should just turn the camera on at the very beginning and just go from there. Because sometimes we have more interesting conversations before the show starts than we actually have during the show. Looking at you, Trey. Excited to hear Thesis talk shop with another Eastern martial arts. So am I. Just manning the chat. That's your job. You got the wrench. Hopefully no more feed questions. Oh, please no. Please. If he shows up again, just end it at the very beginning. We got it. No, that was just weird. Yeah, seriously, if he shows up again, I'm booting. Yes. We allow assorted weirdos, but some people are just beyond the limit. Huh? Either a troll or needs therapy, probably both. Probably both. Yeah, I will agree with that. Here we go. Carl's dropping his like, well, pick it up. What's up with that? Showtime, yep. And Sarah is joining us. Oh my God, Sarah. Sorry, I haven't been around. Just saw this being live. How are you doing, Sarah? It's been a while. You doing all right? We've been worried about you. Greetings for Sarah. Still around, a lot going on, but I'm still around. Good. That is good to know. No window AC in my room yet, rearranging things in 90-degree temps. Oh. Stay hydrated, please. Just excited to see you guys. We're excited to see you too. We've been a little concerned. Carl is surrounded by, hey, not just Carl surrounded by women. Come on now. Hey, Sarah, there's a guest today. Yes. Displayed, dismayed. No. More greetings for Sarah. Yes. Waiting for the rocket launching window AC to put us in old school. Yeah. Have thesis on the truck audio. Oh dear. Okay. I'm sorry. I apologize. So, gotta have my tea. Time to bring in my very, very honored guest. He is a long ways away, but he is a teacher, he is a swordsman, and he is my first fellow Chinese martial artist. So I want the Sword family to give a very, very warm welcome to Sifu Kuttel.
Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me. And also thanks for working with my schedule.
Yeah.
We're working on my time.
Well, I mean, my regular time going on would be like 2 or 3 in the morning for you. So
yeah.
No,
not possible.
No. I mean, sometimes I'm up at 3 o'clock in the morning, but I don't expect anybody else to be. And more greetings. How I'm doing, hanging in there. Just got denied food assistance. Ouch. 9 days to stock up. Ouch. And there is greetings for Trey. Trey was my very, very first tea time guest, and she is my only repeat guest. And last time we ended up talking for almost 2.5 hours.
Wow.
Totally has a. I noticed that Sarah is one of my regulars, or usually regulars, and she's always talking about someone else that is also a martial artist, which, Sarah, you still need to get me in contact so he can be on the show. And she sent me pictures, and there's definitely a resemblance.
Nice.
And greetings from Carl. And greetings from Trey and Joe.
Hello, hello.
And I would hope you recognize that term, Sarah. You've been around for long enough. You should know Sifu, Shifu. Tea time is a great time. Hope you have as much fun as I had. So do I, because it's always nice when people actually enjoy conversation and not. That's the whole reason that this channel is named the Teahouse. Because if you've ever seen the Jet Li movie Fearless, I think it's called Ho Yan Jia in international markets. There's a scene kind of later on in the movie where Jet Li's character Ho Yan Jia is sitting and having tea with the man that he's going to be fighting the next day. And they're discussing, at first, the differences in tea. And Ho Yan Jia essentially says, I don't care. I don't care about the rating of tea. It's tea. We grade the tea. The tea doesn't grade itself. And it's around that point that the Japanese martial artist realizes we're not talking about tea anymore, are we? So that's kind of what this channel is about. It's about discussing martial arts without it having to be combative, without having to have people screaming at each other and, no, my style is better. No. Just stop. It doesn't matter. You grade yourself. Leave other people alone. And more greeting from Donna.
Thank you.
Maybe a bit quiet. Dog is being very cuddly. Yet he usually is. I'm kind of surprised that he's not in here. Known that term for about 20 years. I've known that term for about 30 years, I think. Listening mode while having excited zooms and high humidity. Please be careful, Sarah. Please. We don't need you passing out from heat stroke. especially since like no one is around you. We don't need to do that. Okay, so very first question I always ask, because this is the tea house. What are you drinking?
I'm having a light, just green tea with jasmine. You know, it's evening time here, so
Yeah,
I know it's kind of like your normal time, right? You never want to be too caffeinated.
yeah.
So,
I don't
following
usually,
that
I'm not usually in the tea yet this early in the morning, but
there you go.
strawberry lemonade fusion. This is good stuff. I really enjoy it.
It's the right time of year for it too.
Oh yeah, you iced tea right now? Yeah. Tea time is like the library where you get to borrow people, get to hear stories, and get different perspectives. Yes.
Absolutely.
That's a good way to look at it. I like that. So what first got you into martial arts?
I mean, it's kind of the classic tale. There's a lot of people have the same thing. You know, it was my teenage years and saw some Bruce Lee movies and wanted to be like Bruce Lee. I mean, there were some other factors too. I had always been involved, or I had always admired martial arts. And I want to say going back towards my childhood and, you know, like Ninja Turtles and you know, getting into that kind of the ninja craze that hit. And then, of course, once I started with Bruce Lee, it was like, you know, the gateway to Kung Fu cinema, and then getting into Jackie Chan, Jet Li, Donnie Yen, all the old classics from, you know, the Shaw brothers and everything. So it just, I worked at a video store, and that was also, it facilitated my need to see more Kung Fu movies. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, I can, yeah. Oh, Ruby, yes. Love the butterfly swords in the background. Yes.
Yeah. So
nice.
They are antiques. They are Qing Dynasty sometime, probably about 100 years, over 100 years old now. But these were a gift from a student of mine back when I was teaching in San Francisco. So a very special gift, a very special set of butterfly knives. Not for practice.
No.
The handles on the inside are cracked, so I don't want to put any more. Yeah, I mean, just traditional wear and tear, you know.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yes, it's evening right now over there.
Yeah, here I'm over in Switzerland, and it's now it's almost 6:45.
Oh, Sarah, if you think that room is perfect, you need to see the other areas that he films in, because wow, it's impressive.
Yeah, a couple of sword racks, a couple of blades, you know. It gets a nice ambiance.
It's the standard martial artist's room there. Yeah, exactly. You got to have the, you know, you can't see it because it's over here to my left, but I have a Peking opera mask, a scroll of the Analects, I think, a bird script of the character Sword. It's all like here.
That's awesome.
Yeah. This might be a difficult question for you to answer than any of my other guests, but we have to do it. So what is your preferred weapon or weapons?
That really is a difficult question. Yeah, I mean, it's hard. So in the style of Kung Fu that I teach, I mean, I don't know them all, but we have 53 different weapons. And I do know probably about 30 different weapons. And
really?
It really depends, you know, coming into like whether or not I'm working on a particular form at a time, if I'm reviewing something, or if I'm teaching a particular weapon. And sometimes I'll dive a little bit deeper into techniques and things. But yeah, it's hard because, you know, you've got your long weapons, short weapons, flexible weapons.
Mm-hmm.
Although I would say lately I've been focusing a lot more with the classic, the Dao, the saber. So I would say,
Okay.
it's kind of the good, it's the old reliable, I would say. So it's always
Yeah.
nice to go back to.
Okay, Sarah. What brought you to Switzerland? Yeah.
What brought me to Switzerland? Well, it was a couple of things in particular, but basically, one of the things that made it really easy was that I actually have Swiss heritage. My grandparents came from Switzerland to the United States, and then I had my father made sure that I was able to get citizenship. So I already had citizenship and my passport.
Oh,
And the main deciding factor was actually my wife got an excellent job opportunity. So we had spent some previous time doing a long distance relationship for many years, and moving to Switzerland was like, well, it's really easy to do, and I'm tired of long distance, so let's go for
yeah.
it. And we did.
And Midnight asks, what style do you teach?
So I teach two styles. I teach Tai Chi, Yang style Tai Chi, and I teach the Southern style called Choi Li Fat. And the Mandarin name for that is Cai Li Fo. So depending on how you want to call it. But typically my teacher, he used Cantonese terms. So a lot of what I'll say is probably just Cantonese terms. I have to think it a little bit further. Yeah.
I've noticed that in the videos. Like Xiong Dao.
Exactly. Yeah. But I do try to, especially now that I've been doing sword reviews, I try to stick with the Mandarin terms for Jian, Dao, Shuang Shou Jian, Shuang Shou Dao, or Shuang Dao, and things like that.
Yeah.
So, I have to flex that side every so often.
Oh yeah, like I have been studying the Mandarin language since my very first Shifu back when I was 14-ish, 15.
That probably gave you a great jump on it too. Like it probably made your pronunciation a lot more natural and easier too, because you're still in the development phase. You're still growing, and you can actually grow with the language.
Sarah has mentioned that my pronunciation is pretty good, and I'm like, well, I've been doing it for a while. I mean,
yeah, practice helps. Time and work and effort.
when the person that introduces you to martial arts and the language is, I mean, he could speak English. He'd been here for a while. He helped build the railroads in this area, so he'd been here a while.
Yeah.
But when he would get angry or upset, it would just pop off in Mandarin, and I'm like, what?
You get to learn some special phrases.
Just a few, yeah. You're fine, Sarah. You're fine, Sarah. We understand that you're an acquired taste, Sarah. We'll put it that way. And yes, if you have any other questions, and if anyone else has any other questions, please feel free, because I want people to, have their questions answered. And if I don't ask the question that you want answered, then go ahead and ask it. I don't.
There you go.
Yes. A lot of diversity, and got to the point of translating their accents to other healthcare workers. Which is fun when you can speak or understand another language. You can get into situations where someone can be talking about you and not realize that you can hear them. And you're kind of like, really?
The key time is the moment to reveal that you understood everything. How far do you want to let them dig their grave?
Let them dig a little bit, maybe. And Carl asks if you're teaching now, and is there a lot of interest where you are living?
So yes, I am teaching. I think there's some interesting dynamics now, especially. I'm doing a lot of online teaching at this point, and I think a lot of that is, can be attributed to the pandemic years where people were looking for online programs. So I do have a couple of ways that I have students that are learning from me online. Some do my online program, and they can learn it just like they would learn in the school. They learn the curriculum, and then they test with me, so they still get a chance that I can give them details and corrections. And that way, I also make sure it's quality control before they move on to the next level. And then I also do just live lessons over video calls, and it's been really interesting that I do have, probably for the first time in professionally teaching, from even way back when I was running the school in San Francisco, this is the first time that I have an actual substantial amount of students, almost the same amount, almost equal amount of students that are learning Qigong as well as Tai Chi as well as Kung Fu. So that's been really unique. I've been doing a lot of Qigong. Very helpful right now. But I also do teach in person, and there is always, it's people really like the traditional martial arts. So I have a couple of students. I'm only teaching private lessons at this point here, just because of I want to build up before I try to go in for group classes, and also I'm at the point too where I'm still developing my speaking language here. A lot of the language is in French, so I had to learn French when I moved here, and my French is getting to the point where I'm feeling pretty confident in teaching, but I still need to be able to have it a little bit stronger before I go full on with group classes and things like that. So yeah. But yeah, also, I saw your look, so I know you're thinking, so Switzerland actually has 4 languages that they speak here. There's no actual specific or main language here. It's a mix between German, French, Italian, and then a very small amount speaks Romansh, which is kind of like one of the branches of Latin. So I do have a little bit of Swiss German speaking skills, and I have French as well. So and of course English.
Well, yeah, of course. Are you noticing an age trend in your students? Ooh.
It's I offer lessons at all ages. So I do teach children and adults and seniors. So it's tough to say. You tend to find the younger, I would say adults and children, teens, they're always going to be in the Kung Fu realm. For Tai Chi, it's always adults and seniors, and Qigong can be kind of anywhere in between. It's something where a lot of my Qigong students are doing it for like rehabilitation, or to supplement their PT or their OT that they're doing as well. So it's that's kind of across all ages though too.
Yeah, of course. I had a fairly significant accident 3 years ago and ended up going in for a total hip replacement on my left hip. And one of the first questions that actually my wife back there asked was asking the doctor when I could go back to starting practicing. And he's like, well, that depends on what you practice. Like, well, a lot of different things, but Tai Chi, Bagua. He's like, 6 months minimum. I'm like, oh, really?
Though I think doctors really don't have a good impression of the different martial arts unless they're a martial artist themselves, unless they actually know the arts by name. I found that a lot of them will recommend it kind of, which goes into this Qigong that I've been doing lately. A lot of them will recommend Tai Chi because it's low impact, it's low, methodical movement. But when I actually talk to the person, I'll kind of figure out where they're at. And in a couple of cases, I've suggested Qigong, which has been, I feel, the better path because it's simple, repetitive exercises. The style that I've been teaching predominantly has been the 8 brocade exercises. So there's still a lot of physical development in that too. it's not just standing meditation. It's not just those slow movements. There's a lot incorporated, but it's more physical movements that really works on the mobility and strength building in the body, and it helps to stabilize your muscles too. So
Oh yeah.
I feel that for rehab, it's probably more important to do a good set of qigong than doing tai chi. But that's, again, they're coming in, they don't really know the difference between one or the other. They're just on doctor's orders. But yeah, we tend to find the right thing for them.
And that's definitely something that I've encountered here in a small southeastern town in Utah. There's 1 or 2 karate studios, and that's it for the entire area. And used to be, our local community college had a Kung Fu and Tai Chi class, which I took. Okay. And then he stopped doing it. So now it's pretty much the karate. And I have currently 2.5 students. And there's a reason for the half, but okay. I have my wife back there. I have Kitty up in Canada. And then I have my little 2nd grade cousin. And that happened because a few summers ago, she was very young and very energetic, and I wanted to do something to get some of that energy out. So she is attached to me at the hip. People think she's my daughter for how much she clings to me.
Wow.
So she was right here the whole summer, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make you a tiny little practice sword, and we're going to go down to the basement and practice. And it was just something to do to pass the time. Yeah. And she kept coming back to it.
Nice.
So I'm like, okay, yeah. And most of the people that I have taught, either through an assistant instructor for the community college or people just coming to me, most of them have been women. The men just don't, I don't know if they don't understand or if it's, a macho thing, but it's mostly been females that are like, yeah, I want to learn, the Yang Simplified 24 or the 8 Brocade Qigong or, the little bit of 7-star Mantis that I know. And I always, it tends to upset, and this might be why some of the men don't want to come to me. I don't start out with the martial arts. I start with more of a philosophical outlook. So when we get into doing, horse stance or doing a form, the why is already there. They already understand why we're doing these things. And that might be why the men are like, no, I want to come in there and kick ass. Well, that's not what we're doing here. We don't do that.
It's like the traditional where the warrior had to do all the scholarly activities as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Read the read philosophy, do poetry, calligraphy, all of that as well.
Which I do calligraphy and music.
The full scholar. Yeah, music as well. That's right.
I have a qigong or a guqin back there in the corner, which my most recent Father's Day present.
Oh, nice. Cool.
This was hard to come by too. So
I mean, I'm sure the instrument was as well.
Yeah.
It's not really your music shop normal inventory.
There is a music store here in town, which is actually where I got this.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
And before I bought the guqin, I kind of went into him because it's like, you're kind of an expert in the musical area. And he's like, I have no idea. So it looks good. I don't know. Maybe. I got it from eBay. Oh. Hey, Robin. Good Robin's on YouTube. I expected Robin to be over on Twitch. Nice. So
yeah, back when I was in San Francisco, there was just one like shop in Chinatown that we would get, for our lion dance drumsticks and our lion dance cymbals and gong, and they had some Chinese instruments. And sadly, they, as times changed in the last, I would say, 10 years now, they switched over to just more of just standard music lessons with more modern instruments, and then they cleared out their shop space for a recital hall. So on one hand, it's nice that they're still a part of the community, but it's kind of a bummer that you can't just go in and get these, cymbals anymore, or the gong, or the traditional instruments either.
Yeah. Do you have a preferred style with the Tao? Or a preferred form, maybe, would be a better way to phrase that.
Yeah, I mean, so there are a handful of forms in Charlie Fut that use the Tao. And I would say probably my favorite out of there would be, it's called Mui Fa Dan Do, and it is plum blossom, Mei Hua Dan Dao, I guess. So it's the plum blossom broadsword. It is one of the longer broadsword sets that we have, and I do enjoy it. I should say saber. Broadsword, is kind of the older translation terminology. So saber.
Yeah. Big knife. We'll go with big knife.
Yeah, but I would say that, and I do enjoy the Tai Chi saber, but I feel that the Mui Fa Dan Do is very practical. It has probably the most variety of techniques as far as long range, short range. There's some grabbing techniques that are shown in that are done in that, and it even has some flowering and some more, like it has some barrel rolls. It has some flowering sections. You do some kicks and you bring the sword underneath. It's kind of cool. So I do enjoy that set.
Okay, yeah.
And I don't have any videos actually of me performing it. That should happen sometime. But it's one of our standard intermediate level forms. So it's something like I've been doing forever. It's I don't know when it'll become unstuck from the brain. It's really ingrained in there.
Well, when you've been doing something for so long, it tends to stick in your brain.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you kind of covered this one a little bit already, but what kind of martial arts media do you still now consume, like YouTube and movies, video games, things like that?
It's actually, I would say, so obviously movies, but I would say, more recently, there's been a nice amount of video games from China that have been kind of bringing in traditional martial arts into the mainstream.
Yes.
It was fun to play. Like Sifu was a fun game, and then of course last year Black Myth Wukong I've been all about, and just yesterday, I think it was just yesterday, I saw a preview for another game that's coming out, and it's called Blood Message, if I remember the name correctly. But I was geeking out over the swords in it because they are actually period appropriate. So for once, I know, like you look at games like Dynasty Warriors or some of the wuxia games, they like to embellish the weapon. It's fun. But they actually had like legit sabers in that. They had the ring pommel with the different, like the dragon shape in it, or like the flame shape. They had the Song era as well, because it's supposed to be taking place at the end of the Tang and into the Song dynasty. So it's just really nice to see that, and not anything embellished, So there you go. A little bit more in the video games side of things these days too.
That's actually a personal issue of mine. Is there's so many amazingly cool real life historical weapons. Why do you need to bring in these goofy looking, why?
Yeah.
There is a game that I have been playing since 2015, I think.
Oh wow.
It is a online MMO called Nine Dragons. You should check it.
That's right.
It is very, very cool. But my issue with it is you start the lower levels, the lower villages, and you have actual Chinese looking weapons. They might not be fully historically accurate, but they're close.
Yeah.
But then you start getting up into the higher levels, and it's like, we're going to completely abandon that and just throw in this weird anime crap. It's like, no, just stick with the weapons you already have, man.
Yeah, just make an upgrade system for that. Make it, like you can just make it a little bit fancier, with the the fittings or whatever, or the scabbard could be a little bit fancier, the blade can have a different look to it. But like you said, there's so many already there.
Yes.
I think China has no excuse for this. The games that come out of China, they have no excuse if they're in the historical era, like they're trying to be historically accurate. But I think the Western world has, and I mean, even further east, if you go to Japan, I think there's still an issue there where they didn't know the vast array of weapons over history that China had. And I think we're a little bit more lucky now because we have resources. Things are, we have a little bit more access to things where we can see diagrams and drawings, and we can see pictures from museums in China.
Yes.
And we can see which swords existed at those times. But I know when I started martial arts, I thought that every the 3,000-year-old sword looked exactly the same as a Qing dynasty saber. Like I thought like the design never changed,
Not quite, but we all make
exactly
goofy mistakes when you're just getting started in martial arts, like the whole blood groove thing with swords, and everyone calls it a blood groove, and it's not until you actually get into the martial arts where it's like, no, that's not what that is.
Yeah, and I guess you have to have patience with people because again, we're lucky that we have access to these things, and then also we have that kind of nerdiness that we want to go back and look at all of these things in history too. So
I just shared a video yesterday on my Facebook from a martial arts teacher that literally said, martial artists are nerds.
Yeah.
And like, well, you're not wrong, but okay.
It's true.
Okay, Carl. We'll talk about this, but did you ask if he'd ever seen Crab Style other than the movie reference?
No, just the movie itself, Heroes of the East, and that's Crab is interesting. I have never seen a Crab Style, but there are some obscure animals. It's just never seen crab.
There was one other movie. Trey shared it with me, and it was Crab and Shrimp.
Really?
Yes, it was in a different movie, and it was. I want to say it was Chinese because Heroes of the East was Japanese, but
that's right. Yeah, he was the ninja.
Yep. Oh, that's a good question, Sarah. Do crafts that the Eastern world does? Calligraphy and
I would say nothing in the traditional sense. I don't do calligraphy. I don't play any of the traditional instruments. I really enjoy woodworking, but it's not in the traditional style. I still use like hand tools and things, I do have the chisel and file and planers and things like that. But again, it's not anything very strictly traditional on that end of things.
Yeah.
Actually, I think it kind of also, in relations to the martial arts itself, the two styles that I teach and I study, they are relatively young styles in terms of martial arts. So, you're looking at Tai Chi is a bit older, but Choi Li Fut is something that was created in 1836. So in martial arts terms, that's, couple of centuries behind some other arts. So that's that's going with things along that line too. I mean, it's a lot of the traditions surrounding the art are a little bit more modern anyway.
Yeah. Well, in that vein, I have to show this off because this is one of my personal. I make these.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I saw you just released a video recently about that.
Yep, a new commission that should be being delivered right about now.
That's awesome.
I really enjoy it. It's very, very calming when you're not fiddling with the tiny little bits that get you annoyed.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, crab style is funny, and yes, it is even funnier when you all do it when I walk into a room. Thank you for that. That was very impressive. Thank you. One of my patrons, Joe Bachman, woodworking would be fun to get into, just don't have the space, so took up wood burning, which
that's awesome.
That right there is a wood burn that he did of my channel logo. Yeah, that's what he did.
Cool. I didn't realize that was burnt. Oh,
yeah.
Cool. Wow, that's excellent. That's really well done.
Yes,
wow.
It is.
I thought that was, in the background. I just thought that was more like a print or nope, somebody had done. That's really well done.
That is a full-on wood burn that he did. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It sits in the background of most of my videos, at least most of my lives.
So actually, I did kind of fail to mention because within the arts that I teach, I do have a little bit of experience with Wudang in the style, in the Dan style of Wudang from Li Jinglin, kind of that lineage from Li Jinglin, his sword brother Guo Qifeng. And I know you do Wudang as well, but I mean, I would say I only do a couple of forms. That's my training, and we've done a couple of drills in our classes. Like when our instructor class, my teacher would have us do some of the couple of 2-man drills, but just pieces from the form, and then also some walking techniques and some walking drills and some sticky sword fencing. But I'm quite distant from the rest of the Wudang world, because I do have a friend that he studied at the temple out in the mountains at Wudang Mountains.
Wow.
He Sifu David, or Shifu David Wei, he runs Wudang West in the Bay Area, and the way that he does his stuff is very different than the way that I do mine. And I was wondering, what is do you know your lineage of Wudang as well?
So most of it that I have done recently has been from like the DVDs and the stuff like that. So I can't actually, and my 7-star, I honestly, he didn't talk about it.
Okay.
So
okay.
And I only trained with him for like 10 or 11 months before he passed. So we never really we were spending most of that time on just learn the form. And
yeah.
So I honestly, my second Shifu that I was the assistant instructor for at the local community college, he was in the Taiwanese military. So he did 7-star Mantis, Yang 24, Baji Quan, and a little bit of Bagua, but I never got into Bagua with him. So I honestly can't really trace the lineage. I've wanted to, but
right. There's I was like just recently. Oh, sorry.
Right now, this is the sword form that I'm learning. The Wudang Snowflake Sword.
Cool.
Which I had to completely restart after my hip surgery because you have to rebuild your entire base.
Yep. How long has it been since your injury?
It was 3 years ago last month, beginning of May.
Do you feel that how was the recovery process? Did you feel like you got back to the point that you were before the
No,
accident?
and I don't think I ever will.
Really?
But it's brutal. Another friend of mine, actually two of them, one of them just had his done, and another one is waiting to get hers done. And I went to my physical therapist. I did all the exercises that they told me to do, but I was getting impatient. And this is my don't be like me story.
Oh no.
This is what I tell everyone. Don't be like me, don't be stupid. Because I think it actually set me back. But I was getting impatient and not being able to actually do my martial training. So I was sitting here one day and I did my exercises that I was supposed to do. And I'm like, you know what? Let's try something simple, something low impact. It wasn't, but
No.
to me before the accident, it was easy.
Yeah.
So I tried doing some simple Bagua circle walking. I took 3 steps.
Because you have you're rotating inside of the hip. Yeah.
I took 3 steps and dropped to the ground. She had to come and pick me up and put me back up on the couch. So yeah, don't be dumb. Don't be like me. Wait that you're supposed to.
Yeah. That's one of those hard things though, because especially when you come from a martial arts background, you have such when you develop a certain amount of athleticism, you don't realize how far you've gone. Where you're at is just normal to you. And it's not until you have a moment where you lose it that you find out exactly where you were. And then of course it's just the athlete mindset as well. I mean, I've done it plenty of times. I had a sprained thumb for like 3 years because I just couldn't stay out of sparring. And it's just, I'd be even like doing everything to keep that hand back and use my other hand and just my legs. And of course, always one point, I'd jam it up again and sprain it, re-sprain it. And, but yeah, you kind of like, you feel, as soon as it feels somewhat good, you're like, oh yeah, this will be nothing, this will be nothing. And then also you expect to go back in at the exact same point that you were at before the injury, and then that either you push yourself too hard or it just gets very frustrating and you end up making a silly move. But that sucks. Of all things too, like just being able to just go out and step. Like I get stir crazy when I can't practice, even just on a day where it's like after a competition or after a hard workout or something, and I'm just tired and I want to just rest. I still can't. I gotta get up. I gotta move. Otherwise, it doesn't feel complete. So I can't imagine. That's a real bummer. That's a real bummer.
Still to this day, I will step wrong or I'll step out of a vehicle wrong, and it'll twinge that hip, and it's just like, oh, yes, I know you're still there. Thank you for reminding me.
Oh, no. Do you find that, are there any arts that function a little bit better? I mean, obviously, like you said, Bagua kind of puts you in a compromised position for that. It has a potential right now, but in the other styles that you practice, do you feel that you have any potential injury?
But I have noticed, like you literally have to rebuild your base. Yeah. So I had to go back and start redoing the basic wushu stances, the horse stance and bow and arrow. And I've noticed that before the accident, I really couldn't get a lot of the low stances and the coiling stances very well. Now I can.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't. It always.
I wonder.
Why?
Maybe you have that, I guess, more attentive focus towards it. Like you're really, and you're not trying to just go for the result. You're actually trying to go for the process of doing it right because you're worried about having a potential injury back.
About messing it. Yeah, that's actually a really good idea.
That's interesting.
Kitty asked a very interesting question here. really enjoyed your snake kung fu series. What's your favorite animal style?
So first off, I'm glad you're enjoying the snake. I wanted to do it for the year of the snake, so that's been really fun to do. And then yeah, I would say so. I do it. I mean, I do enjoy all the animals. We teach 10 in Choi Li Fut, and it's not so we have like the standard 5, and then the other 5 are the little bit more obscure. But within that, there are some really strange ones. I've never seen nor have I learned tiger cub or lion, and I think it's lion. I'm interested now to find out if it's lion as in like the lion dancing lion, like it's supposed to be that, or if it's supposed to be maybe another representation of like a qilin or a piju or something else that maybe they didn't translate to English. They couldn't figure out how to translate to English. So I wonder about that. But I've always felt really comfortable with the dragon style. I do enjoy dragon. And especially the Choi Li Fut form, it really is something that kind of meets the way that I move. However, I think one that always sticks with me too is leopard. And I also, when we used to do performances and we would have some people perform animal styles, I typically would perform tiger. I did enjoy that one as well, but I think the favorite would have to be dragon at that point. So
mantis.
Yeah. We don't have mantis in Choi Li Fut, but I mean, I've always looked at it as like we have singular forms, but you have an entire dedicated style when it comes to mantis. So I have high respect. I have one of my good friends. He is a Sifu up in Seattle, and then he also came in and learned Choi Li Fut when I was in San Francisco. And like when we would spar, he was I had to be careful from his. He'd move in, he'd hook over the top. Even with the glove, you don't even have to worry about having that finger. You could still hook with the wrist. So he'd move in a couple of these ones, pull it out of the way, and I'd have to be ready to get my head out.
Yeah.
So, and he had some nice kicks. I did enjoy, like he had some good kicks. Those are the sneaky ones.
And Christian is joining us. Is Tai Chi effective for self-defense? How would you rate it on a 1 to 10 if Aikido is 1 and Karate is 10? That's an interesting scale.
Okay, so I would say this is one of those things, though. It comes down to how it's being taught and how you're training it, and especially where you're coming from with your background. Nowadays, a lot of people just see Tai Chi, they pursue Tai Chi for the health benefits. So a lot of teachers teach specifically for health benefits, at least making sure that the posture is correct, the movement is correct. They're not, raising the shoulders. They're making sure that they're not doing any extra stuff, keeping the elbows down, having that, all the different energy, especially the keywords, having your ward off energy, your pung energy, having your song staying relaxed, things like that, right? But at one point, like when you look back in Yang style, Yang Luchan had the nickname Invincible Yang because he was so good at fighting. The potential was there at one time. And the way I see it is if you do want to use it and train it for self-defense, it would probably be better as a complementary art to a base that you have. What we would say, quote unquote, more external arts, but I would say just more of a combative art. So if you have a combative background, you can definitely benefit learning Tai Chi techniques, and learning body method is kind of like the new phrase that everybody likes to use, but developing more strength, better structure, better alignment, and better posture for the movements. Tai Chi has a lot of potential, but it's typically not taught that way. So depending on your teacher, you'd have to have a pretty exceptional teacher to be in the focus of the more martial side, and then even in that to kind of pinpoint more towards self-defense. So potential-wise, 10, but typically what you find in most schools is going to be more like a 1 or a 2. a lot of schools these days, if they do any kind of combative, if you want to call it that, training, it's going to be more towards push hands. And
Mhm.
it's super valuable. I love push
Oh yeah.
hands. I think it's an excellent form of training. But a lot of people, if they use that, it tends to be the peak of the mountain. Their Tai Chi combative side, that's the destination, is push hands. And really, you should look at that as just one stop along the way. It's not the
Yeah.
end goal. Your push hands should help everything else, but it shouldn't be like, oh, I'm, push hands champion, now I can beat everybody. It's not going to happen that way.
No.
But it is excellent supplementary training for that. If you have somebody that's going to actually, like, if you're not punching at full speed, if you're not kicking at full speed, if you're not using techniques and doing joint locks, I wouldn't say at full speed, you want to be safe, but if you're not setting up the joint lock at full speed and you're not making contact with somebody in a martial context, then it's not a self-defense art.
And
However, go ahead. I'll mention that after.
Technically, I did not learn the Yang 24 form in class. Okay. My wife took the class. I came and watched the class.
Interesting.
And when I took the Kung Fu class the next semester, I made an offhand comment that I was able to learn the form without taking the class. And Shifu goes, okay, show me. I'm like, oh. So the way that he ran his classes is he would teach. Tai Chi took the entire semester for just the Yang Simplified 24. And the semester is 3.5 months, something like that. And at the end, he would give you a certificate that says that you successfully learned the form. And so he's like, next class, you're going to show me the form. I'm like, oh, okay.
Game on.
I show up to the Kung Fu class, and I did it, and he handed me the certificate. He had gone home he had had so much faith in me that he had gone home that night and just printed it out and had it ready.
That's awesome.
But he would stop in the middle of class and have now we're going to show you how this move actually applies in combat. We show application. So I thought that was really, really interesting because a lot of people, especially the Tai Chi students, not so much the Kung Fu students, but the Tai Chi students especially, took the class for an easy grade.
Right.
They didn't care about getting the certificate. They just wanted something easy. And then he'd be like, no, you're going to learn. This is not easy fun time. We're actually going to do this. So he would do application that he did in the Kung Fu class too. But my issue with the Kung Fu class is the Mantis form that he taught didn't take the entire semester. So after he got done with that, he'd start, okay, what else do you want to learn? And this was my issue with him as a Shifu. He was more impressed with people who could get multiple certificates in a short amount of time than the people who wanted to focus on one thing.
Yeah.
Like there was one person when I was assistant that got 6 certificates in 3 months.
Wow.
They didn't learn the form. Well, they learned the form, but they didn't learn the application of the form. You're just learning the movements. You're not learning how to apply it.
Yeah, that's one of those things, it's as from the instructor standpoint of view, from being a program director and looking at curriculum building, it's very, very difficult to convey what the true meaning behind Kung Fu. We always say it, it's the skill developed over time and effort, that kind of a thing, but it doesn't really sink in, especially when students look at other martial arts. There's belt systems. They look at a list of forms. I mean, we used a more or less a belt system where I was teaching, and I still do to this day, but it's more so for a very specific path in the curriculum. But it's very easy to be like, oh, I want to get this belt, then this belt, then this belt, and then I want to get the next belt. So people will, they'll just push through the forms and try to test right away, but nothing ever sinks in. And then I think one of the best ways to know, like, our brain is powerful. We can look, we can understand, we can memorize things very quickly. But our body, our nervous system, it's not that fast. We have to literally sleep on it. We have to sleep on it. Our body has to do it over and over and over until it commits to muscle memory. But that's just the first step. From there, learning applications, drilling the applications, putting those under pressure in drills. And I think that's also, when you look towards doing something like Tai Chi for self-defense, you have to kind of look at it as a specific context, because you're not always going to be in a position where, your attacker is going to throw, like, just step in and throw a particular punch or do a particular grab. You have to look at more realistic situations where somebody would be attacking you and how to address that. And then I think also, kind of to jump back on the self-defense thing, I think understanding the situational awareness is very important. So if they're framing it in a self-defense mindset, you should be learning how to de-escalate things. You should be learning how to assess the situation and make the decision, that's snap judgment. But also, to go back, I have to remember now, I'm jumping back and forth. But I think, there was it's a two-sided coin. So when or I should say more, it's a double-edged sword, right? We're in a sword family. It's a double-edged sword when it comes down to how students perceive the forms. And this is why you really do need the guidance of your teacher there, because sometimes the student will feel that it's not good enough to test. Where as an instructor, you may be like, it's like, no, you don't, I'm not looking for perfection. At this level, you have already met and exceeded the standard. You will have time for your body to develop this. We're never going to leave this. Everything we do from here builds on this. So your perfection will happen over time. This refinement will happen over time. But there are certain elements in future forms, there's future pieces of the curriculum that are going to reinforce this, that are going to make and help this grow. And I think that's also one of those things where, you can't just be like, I'm not going to move on until it's perfect. You gotta find out that right middle ground.
That's kind of what happened when she took the Tai Chi class, because the day that she did the form to get her certificate, she was having low blood sugar. So she didn't perform as well as she knows that she could. And Shifu was like, don't worry about it. I've been watching you the entire time. I know that you have it. You just don't have it right now.
Yeah. And a test is kind of, and it's one of those moments where I've always seen it, especially when you're looking at the big tests, right? Like your black belt level, that really big equivalent test. When you're doing those, it's more to prove it to yourself that you deserve it when you're taking that test. Unless, not all instructors see it the same way. The way that I see it is, I'm not going to put my student up to test unless I'm confident that they've already passed it at that point. Like, they should already be at a passing level. They should already be competent enough to not fail. And that's one of those things. The rest is just having that it's an added stress. They have, all eyes watching them. They're trying to show their best thing. It's a lot of self-imposed stress, but that stress is important to learn to work through in the martial arts. So I do think that's really important too. So, yeah.
Yes, my hip injury definitely changed my perspective. She has a lot of health issues that I could not fully wrap my mind around until I was on the other side of it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I have to say, as in my years of teaching, my best lessons have been through injury. You do have a better understanding because, again, kind of going back to the thing, right? Like when we were talking about your accident, that you don't feel where you're at. You're at a level where everything feels normal, but you're moving with great mobility, without pain, with all like intention, you have efficiency in your movements, you have good balance, and these things you kind of take for granted, unfortunately. And it's not until you have an injury or something else that you do find out where people are coming from. And it's a good experience to be a better teacher.
Yeah. Came in from philosophy, so I'm very calm and usually. I usually am too, but when you've been doing martial arts for most of your life, it kind of, it's always there.
Yeah.
When you're not thinking about it. Like when I was taking the Kung Fu classes and learning the forms, she would yell at me because like at night I'd be laying in bed going over the forms in my sleep and she'd be like, "Stop it." You're going over the movements and like your body is just, it wants to go and you're stuck sitting there because you can't move.
But then sometimes you spasm or kick out and wake everybody up. I did have one night, it was when I was a young instructor, and we had a performance and I was doing lion dancing, and I was when I was younger, I was always the tail, sometimes the head, but mostly the tail. You know, I'd always have to lift people.
Yeah.
And I remember I was super stressed about it, and I went to bed, I was thinking about it, and then I woke up in the middle of the night. My bedspread was draped over me. I had my arms out. I was like doing a lion dance in the middle of my bedroom, and like I was like, oh my gosh. If for one thing, I was, I woke myself up, I was doing this, and then for two, I had to I can't just go right back to bed. I gotta remake everything, put everything back together. Like all the sheets were ripped off and stuff. I was like so stressed.
So interesting you mentioned that. Midnight Asks, you mentioned lion dances. Do you teach lion dance at your school?
Not currently. I don't have any of the equipment. I think that's something I will eventually get when I have a location. I do really enjoy having that aspect of the culture. But when I was teaching in San Francisco, we had a lion dance team. We had over a dozen lion heads. We had a couple of drums, cymbals, gong, all that stuff. And it's really it's an excellent. It was one of those things. You have a Southern style of kung fu. It was essential. So the way that people would judge, in the old days, that's not so much anymore. But the way that they would judge the school was how their lion dancers performed. Mm-hmm. So your stances had to look like kung fu stances. Your agility had to be kung fu agility. And that was one of the ways that the kung fu schools kind of had their edge against schools that just taught lion dancing. But nowadays, it's totally the opposite.
Yeah.
You have your kung fu schools that teach lion dance as supplementary training, and the schools that are dedicated to solely lion dancing are kicking it into high gear. I've been super impressed. There's a group in San Francisco. They came out of the Yao Gong Mun school, and what they do is just lion dance, and they call it Lion Dance Me. Okay, just like M-E right at the end, Lion Dance Me. And I was super impressed. Not only was their lion dancing, hitting top tier level, but the main instructor was able to set up and organize after school programs. So he was able to bring lion dance culture to all of the high schools, to the point where they did get extracurricular credit for it. And then they could go out, they could compete. Some of the students that really enjoyed it, they ended up working for him later on. They bringing it to coaching and even running the business side of it. So it's been really, really cool to see. And it's raised the standard too a lot. Yeah.
Okay, Katie says you should ask him about the fan form DVD you have since he teaches Tai Li Fu. Yeah. Which one is it? I can't remember. I got her. Her weapon of choice is the fan. So nice. I bought her a couple of DVDs to learn from, and one of them is from Tai Li Fu. I just can't remember which one it is.
Yeah, there's a lot of lineages, and depending on the lineage, I may know it. Otherwise, maybe not. But the fan, I actually really enjoy it. That was the first weapon I learned. I took a seminar. It was with the Grandmaster, which later I was working at his school. But in the early days, the first school I attended was in Reno, Nevada. And we would host Grandmaster from time to time. And that was one of the first seminars I got to learn from Grandmaster. He taught the Golden Dragon fan. And that one is a super unique form. It's not, I actually have a fan right here. It's not your typical fan form where you're going to open it up and do, movements with the fan open. It only opens at the beginning and at the end of the form. And then from there, the rest of the time, you have it in more of like a short stick position. You're using it more like a cudgel. And then the hand position for your other hand is Phoenix Eye. So it's very, very unique. But I think for performance value, I really enjoy, there's a fan called Flying Dragon fan. And that has a lot of cool opening and closing movements.
Yeah.
It's a fun weapon. I do like the fan. And I've realized it's become more and more practical these days. I have a student I'm teaching in Spain, and it's really common for people to carry around fans because it is so hot there.
Yeah, that makes sense. She's been watching your fan videos too, actually. So
nice. A lot of the like hand position changes and things like that. That all comes from what I do in the Flying Dragon fan form. And then I even did create my own fan form, and just because I wanted to allow, I can't teach something outside of the curriculum. It has to be in curriculum order to stay within my federation. I have to do it in order. So to do something that's outside of that order for anybody who's interested in learning the fan, I created my own little form. I called it the yin yang fan because you have open fan, you have closed fan. You use it in like ice pick grip too. It's got some grips, grabs, fan changes, strikes. So yeah, that's a fun one. But yeah.
That's cool though.
I can actually use this now. It's nice.
Okay. What is your favorite on-screen sword fight? Doesn't necessarily have to be sword fight, just fight, but
No, I think we can do sword fight. Actually, recently I saw a video on YouTube where somebody did a ranking of top sword fights, and one I would shout out is one that they included was from Drunken Master 2, where he's fighting underneath the train with and like that's super impressive. That was super cool. I really enjoyed that one. But I think probably my favorite, and I think it's an amazing representation of Chinese martial arts sword fighting, is from The Odd Couple with Sammo Hung, and it's him using a sword against a spear. And you might be able to find it as long as you type in Odd Couple and Sammo Hung. If you guys want to watch it, look that one up. Odd Couple, Sammo Hung, sword versus spear, something like that. But that one I think is one of my favorites. And then of course, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon has so many good scenes. I love that scene, where they're busting out all the weapons. To me personally, like I love weapons, and it was so cool to watch like hook swords being used. I wish there was more with the monk spade, but it does paint the picture that it's a heavy weapon. But also like Shuang Jian and the Shuang Do and all, or Dao. Now it's switching back and forth. But double broadsword and the long handle broadsword, or the long handle straight sword. Super cool to see. That's always a favorite.
I think I saw that Odd Couple fight scene fairly recently. I might have to go through and see if I can find it and stick it in the chat so people can find it.
Oh yeah. That'd be cool.
Guessing you're still learning and practicing while also teaching. Well, yeah, you kind of have to, don't you?
The journey never ends. So we do have like a pretty crazy curriculum for Choi Li Fut, and it seems never ending. And even with the amount of forms that I know, I'm still not at the level of my Sifu or my Grandmaster. But I'm always still progressing in the system. I'm always still working on new material, but at the same time, the way I see it is it's kind of like, you kind of look at it like a circle, right? You work on your fundamentals, you work on the forms, you work on your drills and techniques, you work on sparring. and then you'll return it back, and you try to apply each lesson from everything as you continue, but it doesn't necessarily become a full circle because you do improve. The circle gets tighter, it's more of
Yeah.
a spiral. So there's always returning. Like, I have to, not only as an instructor, have all of my material in check so that I can teach my students, but I find, like I said earlier, for testing, like when I was talking about testing, everything builds on everything. So even though there's a form that we teach in the beginner level of the system, it's still something that helps out every other form that follows. Like a perfect example is a footwork pattern form that we have. And it uses a very particular style of evasive footwork. So rather than stepping back in a direct line, it moves in and out. I think the only other thing I've seen from other martial arts is they call it like half moon, or they call it like a semicircle step, but you're moving in closer to your other foot before stepping out instead of stepping direct in straight lines. And that is super important for specific lineage forms. And like if you don't drill it, it's not going to improve the other ones. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've been kicked plenty of times in the middle of the night when martial arts. I dream about martial arts sometimes, okay? It happens.
You're in good company.
Should mention the form. Yeah. So one of the things that a lot of people complain about is how boring it is at the very beginning, just going through the basic stances. It's kind of boring.
Yeah.
So before my accident, I kind of developed a small mini form to go through the stances.
Nice. That's
and it's
awesome.
like one of the first things that I will teach my new students, because your stances are the base. It's the base of the style. You kind of need to know.
Yeah.
So you'll start in Mabu, then go into Gongbu, both sides. And it's one of these days when I'm feeling brave, because YouTube is still, kind of evil when it comes to things like this.
Yeah.
I will film it and put it up on my channel, so people can have that, and then even I can have a recording of it. So if I'm, more broken in the future, I can just be like, go here and
follow these moves.
Yeah.
That's really nice, because it does, when you're starting students out, you give them kind of, you're priming them to work into forms and seeing how forms, are ways of practicing your fundamental materials. So that's really solid. That's nice. Yeah, and I know too, YouTube, like that's actually, I don't do a lot of applications I don't show applications on YouTube, and the main reason is because of the keyboard warriors, because you can say anything you want to a video. A video is just this perspective. There is no, 3D, you can't move around. I can't connect with you to actually show you how it feels. So I also feel that, especially unless somebody has a really developed martial arts background, trying to follow applications is not going to get the results that they always expect or want. And a lot of times, if it's something that doesn't just follow what they've seen in maybe other martial arts styles, or if they just watch combat sports and they don't, they always have the what if answers, then they're going to automatically be in the mindset to naysay. So I feel you there on that one. I pick the ones that I picked my own battles of the videos I want to put out.
Yeah, exactly. Like the one of the first things I ever put on this channel is the Dragon Spring Shaolin Tian form performance that I did in 2010. And I got one comment from a keyboard warrior saying that I had literally dishonored the entirety of Chinese martial arts.
Yeah.
And the one statement was, that's not how my school teaches it. Well, okay,
that's it, exactly.
All right, but this is how I learned it. So what do you want from me?
every time you try to go see how their school does it, and there's no video on their channel. Imagine
Nope,
that.
they just want to talk.
There was a guy, like, sometimes when I get comments, I try to just tell myself, because you get good comments, you get questionable comments, and then you get negative comments. Yeah. And a lot of times I don't respond right away because I want to allow myself to look at it, to kind of let it sit and think, well, maybe it's not coming out the way that they typed it in. Like, I want to see if there was some kind of a positive side to this. Are they trying to be helpful or whatever? And the blatant ones, I typically just do, I turn it around and try to be kind to them and say, oh, it's okay if you don't understand this technique, just keep working and you'll get it. You'll get it one day. Like, that's the way I do it. But I've had, there's been a couple of people that have gone on, and it's, been more of a string, and, it's been ridiculous. There was one I was teaching, just how to do like a simple sword flower. It was a sword combination from a form. That's what it was. It was a sword combination from a form, and this guy jumped on and he had to tell me how it was incorrect because the sword that I had didn't weigh as much as a real sword. And it's like, how do you even know, dude? You have no idea. Yeah. You don't have this sword in front of you. Just because I can move it fast doesn't mean it's light. Like, I do this all the time, so chill out. But I actually did do a video on, sword flowering, and I don't think I actually have any comments on that video, but so many people, that's impractical. What's the point? Well, there's a lot of points. What do you want? People, so that's also you get these, I want to figure out a nice way of saying it, but I would call it, to simplify it, you get the Indiana Jones effect, right? If you're spinning a sword, I could just take out a gun and shoot you, just like in the movie Indiana Jones. Yeah, right. Wow. Okay. Now that you're done with that statement, yes, a sword against a gun, or if I'm just going to stand here and spin it around, it's impractical. But there's so much behind it that's not being said. There's only a demonstration, and I do run into that a lot too, where I make a tutorial on it, just so people can learn how to do it properly. And yet they want to go in for a full explanation of practicality, training, all these things. They expect me to give an entire, dissertation on the entire art and how combat was done on a tutorial of how to spin a sword. And it's like, I'm not going to spend this time on it in this, but yeah, there's so many elements. Just in repeating the movement, you get better mobility, you get better strength. So if you do connect swords with somebody else, you're going to hold it. You're not going to lose your sword. It's easier to knock it out. You're not going to knock it out of your hand. Yeah. Yeah. And then, of course, if you look at it in the simple context of, okay, well, this is one cut and there's two cuts. And if I feel like doing a third, then, wow, it turns into more of a flower. I could change it into something else. But it's the development of the body. It's the development of the movement. It's all of those things. But yeah. I'm just preaching to the choir here, but absolutely, I hear it too. That video I was just talking about the different sword sheathing styles, and stupid cough still won't go away. I had one guy that commented that the not these exact words, but basically that the Chinese style of sheathing was wrong. And it's like, I haven't replied to the comment yet because my initial knee-jerk reaction was just to call him out. But it's like, no, just let it sit for a minute because it's different. Yeah. But it came from Dr. Yang Ming, so I think he might know what he's talking about. The guy's done martial arts for a little bit. I mean, it's definitely an acquired taste, we'll put it that way. If you've never actually seen it done, it's like, okay, but why are you doing it that way? Yeah. Well, and when it's not what they see in movies or video games, then obviously it's not. It's wrong. Correct. Yeah. Yeah, that is the keyboard side, right? And it's so strange how people don't. it's like they disassociate that there's a person behind that screen, like they're actually talking to somebody. You can actually have a conversation. It's not something that you can just yell at and then you should feel better about yourself. Like if that's the case, you should go learn martial arts at that point. You should actually go and train and figure out a better outlet for this negative energy.
And like you said, it's absolutely true that, then you go to their channel and there's no videos, or it's just like video games. It's like, okay, but show me a better way then. Show me how your school did the former. Show me how you, because, I mean, come on now. What is more awkward than putting a sword away?
Yeah.
Unless you know what you're doing. You have to like find the, it's awkward.
Yeah.
But if you know how to do it, it's a lot easier. It's a lot faster. And in some cases, you can do it without looking.
Yeah. And, I think it's interesting too. There's in Choi Li Fut and Tai Chi, or at least in Yang Tai Chi, there are no drawing techniques. We don't do any drawing or sheathing techniques. And that's because the art came about at a time where the people that were using the swords already had it out. Like you weren't walking around like a samurai. So it was more so that you had to learn how to hold it with the blade out in a comfortable way, that if you're standing as a door guard or you're walking as a bodyguard or you're protecting somebody or a shipment or something, you're holding the sword without action for a long time. So if you can learn how to cradle it, like that's what we do. We're not really worried about dueling and having to, unsheath. Yeah. So it is a very specific thing, but it very much does exist. Actually, just recently, I read an article from the Met Museum, and there was a brief mention of how Ming Dynasty sabers could be drawn because of their suspension system, and because if you look, or I guess Ming and Qing, right? Because if you look at like pictures of bannermen, they have the scabbard, the scabbard is forward and the handle is back. And I can't verify it because I've only seen this once in this article. However, it's super practical. I tried it out, and they said just by simply taking the sword, turning it over, now you have blade edge up, and it actually resembles more like a Japanese draw of presenting the sword, rather than trying to like have to, like try to pull it out from behind or take it out with one hand and then switch. So I found that one pretty interesting. But there are bits and pieces that are mentioned here. Even, now this is coming back to me too. I may have to include this. I was telling you earlier about writing a script about a future sword review. There is an etiquette to presenting a sword, which direction it faces, how you present it, which hand, where you hold it, all of that. And that comes down to an assassination attempt from way back in the Zhou dynasty, I want to say. Don't quote me on this one, but all the way back then. And it was specifically from that assassination because of how the person was able to quick draw the sword when they were trying to present it. They were faking it, that they were presenting it to the king of that particular area, holding it out. And then as soon as he moved in, they were able to grab it and then cut and attempt to assassinate him. But because of that, they did institute after that how to actually present the sword. If I'm handing it to you, the handle should be on your right, and on my left, I should have my hands on the scabbard. So this is something where it's still at that same time, though. I'm sure, like the guy handing it over might be thinking, like, "Please don't kill me." But if you're presenting it, it is something different. But yeah, I think there are elements here and there, even though we don't have the same kind of records that the Japanese martial arts did, or even the detailed accounts that you find in like HEMA and European martial arts and their treaties. We don't have any of that until the Ming Dynasty is when the first manuals came out. So there's a lot that's lost to time, and you kind of have to just kind of find these little pieces out of historical texts that give you that picture, but it's not even a full detail.
something that I should bring up, because I have a little resource that you might not be aware of. If you are, that's cool. But there actually is a guy that has a website, and he sells reproductions of Chinese martial arts manuals.
Nice. Is that?
And
oh no, go ahead.
This
oh yeah
is part of a military manual on Chinese sword techniques, and it's not the same kind of, it's more of like an examination of the manual than just a straight up reproduction. But this, for teaching sword, this is a good thing to have.
Yeah.
And ChineseLongsword.com. So
nice. Oh yeah, with Jack Chen. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's done quite a few. There's actually another website that has some translations too, and there are some what would you call it, manuals and some other ones that have been translated that Jack Chen hasn't done, because I think some fit in with him, some don't. But
yeah.
Brennan translations.
Brennan translation. Yep.
Yeah.
I know that
one. Yeah, that's a good resource as well. But I mean, going back to those, like all of those manuals, that longsword manual comes from Qi Ji Guang. That's Ming Dynasty, in its prime. Yep. So, there's a whole lot of lost art from previous to, like 12 to 1600s, and it's more towards the end of that we're actually getting any of those. And also, to be honest, recently in the kicking book that I released last year, I've had a lot more experience in, like, I did the illustrations for that, and even trying to convey through detailed picture and write a description about it. It's very hard to get everything across the same way that you would do in person, the same way that you could do over a video for that matter. But I think we have to, because I know there's been a lot of critiques as far as coming from when you, martial artists that do Japanese martial arts or do HEMA, they love to critique the Chinese manuals, and they love to look at all of the holes that are in it, because, like, why isn't this here? Why isn't this mentioned? Why don't they talk about this? And it's, what was talked about was supplementary to your training, and it was not. You can't reveal everything, no matter how hard you try. You're not going to be able to get everything across in a single drawing. Like, you choose a single moment of time for this cut. It is an important part, but it doesn't it doesn't reveal every aspect of it. And then in your description, you have to choose what's the most important piece of that information to come across. So in the translations of these, it is difficult, but we do still have, in modern practice, even though it's not the exact same thing as back then, we still have elements of those things in our modern practice, even as our arts have evolved. So we do have an understanding of how our stance would be used, how the sword would be used, and then getting, more ideas and more context, more principles, more tactics when we look at those old manuals. It is still very valuable. But if you try to look at it from the lens of being able to read a text from, Fiore, and then try to look at something like that, it's going to be completely different. I mean, not just for language, but just how the lessons, the key points were transmitted. It is something that I do find quite interesting as well now.
Oh yeah, so. The research aspect of it it's really, really interesting, because, like, the European side, they have manuals going back, like, way, way back there, and the Chinese side is like, okay, we have this little, but they were written by, like, generals and, like, professional swordsmen, so you can't just throw it out because it doesn't fit in with what you think swordsmanship should be.
Exactly. I think there are, and I think one of the interesting things, there's a book I read about, I wish I could remember the name. It just talks about how cultures, it's the culture map. It kind of shows how cultures communicate differently. And you have cultures that communicate very direct, some that speak with, and then others on the other end, it's a lot of subtext. You have to really read between the lines. And so if you're comparing somebody, from the Netherlands, they're going to be very direct. It's almost going to sound insulting. They'll almost sound like they're over critiquing every single thing you're doing. And then maybe you go to China or Japan and something is said, but you also have to realize what's been implied. And a lot of that comes from cultural cues. So being able to learn, just by reading the manual is only going to give you so much, because there's so much more that you kind of have like as a prerequisite. Manuals were written with a lot of effort to, like later manuals. The original, like early ones by Qiji Guang is very straightforward. There's a lot of military basis in that. But then as soon as you get into like the 1900s or the late 1800s into the 1900s, and lots of manuals are being written for lots of different styles, you get a lot more of the philosophical elements that are put into it. And that's definitely where, if you don't understand the culture, if you don't have a base level in the culture, then it's very, very difficult to get the true meaning of it. Actually, nowadays too, even when we look at the art of war, a lot of people only read the art of war as, it's just about deception. Oh, that's it. That's all they see in it. And it's like, no, there's so many elements. You have to realize all the Taoist, behind the scenes, there's a lot of Taoist philosophy, but then also things where, it would be terms of, understand heaven and earth. Yeah, you can look at that in the philosophical aspect, but then also you have heaven and earth is basically looking at your weather and the terrain. Two very important things when it comes to the battlefield. Are you going to be affected by the weather that's coming in? And not just like, oh, it's a nice day, but like, are you going to be affected by storms? Are you going to be affected by heavy rainfall over seasons? How's the terrain? That's really important stuff. It's a very, very practical manual that people tend to look deep in one part or they completely miss a lot of the meaning behind it, a lot of the practical side behind it.
Well, so Ruby asks, what is your favorite LK Chen sword? Oh dear.
That's a hard one too. There's, I would say when it comes to favorites, I would have to go with like a favorite Jian, a favorite Dao, a favorite two-handed sword, So for Jian, and I can't even pick a favorite. There's my two top, that seem to me to be the most versatile for training. So this is going to discount because the Hanjian are nice. I love the Flying Phoenix, but it's a long sword. So it doesn't always translate with the modern training forms. And by modern, I say like 1800s training forms.
Yeah, modern.
So, I do really like the disc guard cutting Jian. I really like that one. Yeah. It's a different one with the disc guard because you don't have the opportunity to really get the different hand positions on there. But it has an excellent balance. I love the shaping of the handle and the grip. And I actually really like just the plain, it's just straight up ray skin wrap, which some people find abrasive. And I understand that it will wear your hands down. But to me, I really enjoy it. Like I feel really comfortable with that sword. And the other Jian I really love, like for just the modern stuff, is the White Serpent. I find that to be the most well-balanced.
That is a beautiful sword too. Oh my God, man.
Yeah, I know. And a lot of people are always like, oh man, that one is so, it's gaudy. It's got too much decoration. It's too much. And I don't want to show off like that. It's like, you know what? Once you have it out of the scabbard, like the pommel is fancy, the guard is fancy, but it's not, like when it's in the scabbard, it looks really fancy. But when it's out of the scabbard, you have a really well-made sword on your hands. So for the modern ones, I would say Disc Guard and White Serpent. For Hanjian, I love the Flying Phoenix. That one to me is a masterpiece. I think that one is the top. Like I love the Magnificent Chu. I love the Soaring Sky, but I don't think anything functions or moves as well as the Flying Phoenix. And then for the Dao, I would say it's tough. The Mongolian saber was really amazing, like exceeded my expectations. It's up there, but honorable mention. I would say though, the Qiji Guang sword the one that actually looks like a katana blade on a single hand sword. I love that one. That one is like, I love training with that one. That one is one of my favorites. It's an excellent cutter. And then more recently, I was able to work with the Golden Willow. That one is super fancy, but it is such a well-made sword. The balance is beautiful. For cutting, it cuts extremely well, and for forms training, it moves extremely well. So I'm definitely going to film a forms video with that one soon, and you'll see it in action. But yeah.
I actually had a question about the LK Chen Dao because I only have the two, so I don't really know. So have you noticed any issues with grip or like pain in your palm from the square rectangular grips on those Dao?
So that was something that was different at first. And I think you have to work in some modification to your grip to make it more comfortable. I was kind of back and forth. You don't see a lot of pictures or paintings with people wearing gloves, so I don't think that they were doing that, to be honest. I think you have a lot of guys that the sword was their sidearm, and they were using they were more for archery and even getting into firearms at that time. So they probably didn't have to have it out as long, but it is weird to have that feng shui style, that squared off style. And between the Ming Dynasty swords, I think the most comfortable one was the Qiji Guang sword, but it still has that. And what I found is just with the Qiji Guang, it tapers. But with the Yanling Dao, and I think even with the Woyao Dao, it might taper a little bit, but it's not the same. So you just have to make sure that you kind of, instead of choking up, you want to be a little bit further down. And I found that works really well with that square grip too. Positions the hand a little bit better. But it is off-putting at first, because if you're used to more of the more of the rounded shape, more of the tapering inward, it can be quite a bit different. But yeah, I bought their first run of the Niuwei Dao, the oxtail sword.
The oxtail.
And I was able to recently get their latest version. I think it's their third version of it. And there has been quite a bit of change within that. And I think their recent iteration is the best. So that one, the handle is a little bit shorter. If you look at the earlier versions, it was quite long. You could get two hands on there. And with that, the construction feels a lot more comfortable. I think they did a lot of work on the grip, and it functions a lot better now. And the blade flexibility, it seems to be a little bit more firm. The earlier version had a little more flex. This one is a little more firm, but not to the point where it's affected the weight as much. So it's just a little bit heavier from that, but I think this is their best iteration yet. And I think if you look at it, the way it is, it's got black scabbard, black handle, and then silver fittings. So if you have the silver, if you have the wood scabbard, and if it's black fittings, that's the very first run. And then the in between, if it's got a long handle, you'll know it's the second run. But yeah.
So this is always a fun question to ask people, because the interpretation of the question is just as important as the answer itself.
Okay.
But if you could fight one historical person, who would it be and why?
I guess I would love to fight the founder of Choi Li-Fut, more so just to see his emphasis of techniques. So I love this art. This is my, that's the one I nerd out about the most. I would still I guess that's a tough one. Okay, hold on. Because I would like to see, after all our talk about Yang style Tai Chi and how they're Yang, invincible Yang, I'd love to see how he used the art as a fighting art. Yeah, so I guess I'm more curious then about Choi Li-Fut is very straightforward. You use a lot of
Yeah.
power, use rotation, use striking. If you follow the motion, there's really not a lot of sub context to it, or there's not. You don't have to really get too far. So probably I'd be more interested in fighting Yang Luchan just to see how he used Tai Chi. There you go.
That's, like I said, the interpretation is just as important as the answer, because I interviewed my wife a few months ago, and the way she interpreted the question is she wanted to play chess with Sun Tzu.
That would be cool too. There you go.
Yeah,
that's a great way of looking at it. I like that. Yeah.
When she gave me that answer, she was sitting on the couch behind me, and I literally stopped, like, damn, that's a good answer. Wow. Let's see if we can work that one out. Yeah.
Yeah.
This one's kind of fun too. If you could learn one other weapon from anywhere in the world, what would you choose?
I think I can never have one answer for these.
Exactly.
I think it would be, I've always had a fascination for the katana. So
yeah,
if I had a list, even if I had a list of all the ones that I would love to try out, to go anywhere else in the world, if I'm going away from the Chinese arts, I would really like to learn the katana. I use, like the two-handed dao, the two-handed saber, and it is very similar, especially the Ming version was based on the katana. But I can look at the movements that I know, and I look at Japanese practitioners and the way, even the simple mechanics in a basic cut, starting position, ending position, the formality of the movement, how they treat the whole ceremony of it all. I find it quite fascinating and quite different. So I think that would be probably first. But I would also love to learn, the Swiss saber, because my heritage. I live here now. I would love to see, that, like, I'd love to learn how to use that, or even any of the Swiss weapons. They were known for their spear work and their halberd, and I would love to see how they did that. Connect.
See you later, Carl. Have a good day.
Thanks for coming by.
So if you could fight a fictional character, who would it be?
Oh, okay. Well, I guess if it's fighting somebody fictional, then I guess their abilities and powers. I hopefully I can scale within that.
Oh yeah, of course.
But it'd be kind of fun to test my might up against Sun Wukong, the Monkey King.
Oh,
see,
yes,
see how he
absolutely.
did his path. That'd be kind of fun. And his different magic, his transformations, and all of that. I would be, even just to see it.
Oh yeah,
it could be a short fight, but
it'd be over quickly, but it'd be fun.
That's a good question.
Now this is kind of a more serious question, but it's something that I've tried to expand on some of my original questions. So, what do you wish the Chinese martial arts manuals did better?
Yeah, I wish they would. I wish they would elaborate a little bit more. I think that's the main thing. They have very it almost comes off as a limited perspective, but that's the nature of the manual. Kind of like what we were saying. It's the nature of, you can only say so much. Otherwise, you're gonna just write. You're gonna spend all of your time writing about it. Yeah. And I do wish that they would. I wish that there would be I think it could actually be resolved even with simple accounts of exchanges.
Yeah.
Like just an account of weapon against weapon, when this was used, and what was the outcome. Whether and it'd be hard because there's always room for embellishment. You want to have your stuff be the best always, but being able to understand. And I think actually there's a good example too. I think it wouldn't be that outlandish because even in the longs the Dandao Fajuan, with and also going into like what Qi Jiguang said, there is mention of using a sword up against a trident. That he suggested that if you run into somebody that's using a trident, turn the blade around and use the spine of the sword rather than the blade edge, because it was the trident would be, it was, their tactic is to catch, trap, and it would just damage and burr and chip away at the blade.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's like, that's all you're going to do is turn around and use your same techniques. I think you're pretty limited as to what you can do. And obviously, depending on the forging of the sword, you have a chance of still breaking it. But, just running into things like that, I don't think it would be outlandish to say that, here's an account of using the sword. This is when it was up against this, weapon or this type of armor, it worked really well, but it wouldn't work as well against this or that. I think having something, where it's just good advice. I wish there would be like that in it, and it doesn't have to be very in depth, but I think that would solve a lot of questions that people have. I mean, when we look at, for example, you look at swords from the really long jian, the two-handed jian from back in the Han Dynasty, from back in the Chu, in the all the Warring States era. They're really light. They're very flexible. How are those used on the battlefield? Like there's chariot fighting. There's some people in armor, but that makes a huge difference. If they're not very well, protected, then having a more flexible sword isn't going to be a big deal. You have speed. You have cutting potential. But if they're wearing heavy armor, it nullifies the whole effect. Like you're going to just break the sword. So, yeah, that's something, it'd be interesting to hear.
Yeah. Okay, last 3 questions.
All right.
What is your all-time favorite Kung Fu movie?
Legend of the Drunken Master 2. That's the one.
Beautiful.
For me. It's the, after getting into Bruce Lee and when I kind of shifted over into Jackie Chan, that was I ran that VHS out. I ran that DVD to scratches. Like, that's my favorite.
That's what I like to call the Bruce Lee to Donnie Yen pipeline. You start with Bruce Lee, then you get to Jackie, then Sammo, then Donnie, and it's just you start, because that's basically where I started too. Is a relative of mine introduced me to Bruce Lee movies, which still to this day I cannot watch dubbed kung fu movies. Can't do it. They use the same 5 voice actors, and they all
especially those old ones. Yeah. That's always, and the voices too. There's always like the main guy's shouty guy, and then there's always like the yelling. They're always, and there's no fluctuation. There's no depth. It's just shouting.
Yeah, exactly. I don't even know if I could answer that myself, which is kind of entertaining, is asking all these questions to other people, and I'm thinking of my own answers, and I'm like, favorite. Okay, well, do we break them up into genres, like favorite 70s kung fu movie, favorite modern sword? Because I love Hero, Jet Li Hero.
Yeah. Hero's excellent.
The fight with him and Donnie Yen in the chess house.
Yep.
Oh my God, dude.
Actually, have you seen? It was a more modern one. It was called. They remade an old movie. I want to say the English name was The Blade Master, and it was, you'd know it because the guy, one of the main characters, his face is tattooed to look like a skull, and it's between him and the heir of a sword clan. So it's clan against clan. There's a the wuxia, a little bit of wuxia element to it. When I saw the previews, it didn't look appealing, but there was one day I sat down and watched it, and I actually really enjoyed that movie. So I would recommend it. It came out in the last 15 years, I would say.
Recent, within the last 15 years.
Yeah. I would say 2010s era. somewhere
Yeah.
in there.
So what are your daily drills like? If you do daily drills, which
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. So obviously, like I was mentioning earlier, I still keep up on my old material, and a lot of that comes down to what I'm teaching. And so right now, I do actually appreciate that I have students at all levels. So
yeah,
I do grind the fundamentals, and then I work on the more advanced material, which is nice because
yeah,
prior to that, if you only have beginner students, you're just going to be focusing on that and then whatever you feel like. So I have been, that's one thing. I set time aside to make sure I do. I usually start my day with, I'll stretch, and then I'll do my Tai Chi practice. And that fluctuates just because the amount of time it takes. So currently I am on a streak. I'm trying to do 108 days of the 108 form.
okay,
And whatever time I have after outside of that training in the morning, I will do, I'll review a form or two. So doing either another hand form, or if I take a weapon out, I'll do whatever Jian forms I have. We do a short Jian form, we do the 32 sword, and then the long sword. And then we have for fans, we do a short left and right hand fan, and then the plum blossom fan, and the wind chasing fan. And then, I'll usually do like a couple of those. If I have the weapon out, I'll try to do a couple of it.
yeah,
And then as I get through the day, if I'm teaching specific things, I will work on those and make sure everything's up to par, because no matter what, if you're teaching back-to-back lessons, it's very easy to get into a moment where you're going to zone out. So
yeah,
if your student stops at a moment where you're not prepared for the next movement, you have to be like, you should be able to recognize that and be able to set them up for their next movement and technique. And then usually with the review, I will also do a little bit of like weight training. Either I'll do either some push-ups, or I have some weights that I'll do, just a couple basic movements. Or when I had the horse bench, I would use horse bench, just do some basic combinations with that because the bench is heavy. And then outside of that, the rest of my training I do in the evening, I will do my own focus. And that's usually whatever Kung Fu forms that I want to particularly work on. Lately, it has been I recently learned the horse form, so that involves a lot of kicking. So I'll go through the form, do some supplementary kicking training, and then I do my cutting practice too. So usually I'll do a weapon in the evenings as well, like if I want to work on a saber form, Jian form, and then I make sure that I work on my cuts, just basic cuts. And it's real simple. I'll do 10, 10, 10, just to be, make sure that the machine is oiled, right? Because, especially with the sword reviews, if I have the moment and I have the time to go and do a cut test, I don't want to have to go and be like, oh, I gotta go to practice for it. I should always be prepared. So, and it's just supplementary too, because if I'm practicing my sword forms and stuff, the cuts are already there. But, taking the time to isolate the mechanics. So, and I spread that out through the day. And people, like, if you're watching this, you have to realize, like, this is my life. Like, you don't have to think of this as the only way of training. What I usually tell my students is practice is practice. If you're going to practice a little bit, you're going to get a little bit better. You practice a lot, you're going to get a lot better, but it's over time. Yeah. So if you have a minute's worth of practice is better than not. If you have 5 minutes worth of practice is better than not. The more time you can devote to it and be in the moment, the better. But there's no need to do like a binge session where you're just going to push yourself for 2-3 hours and then not do anything for 2 weeks or not do anything for a week. The consistency is key. And in a forms-based art, you have perfect practice routine. You can just do one form, and if that's all you know, do it 2 or 3 times in a row. If you know more than one form, then you do the next couple of forms. And, you could be done in 15 minutes with the review itself. And then if you want to really isolate something, you have the opportunity to do it. Your body has been working. It's becoming more familiar, more fluent in the art. practice can be quite simple. Budgeting time can be quite simple, but it's really the motivation that's the hardest part. Telling yourself, like, I have the time right now. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to put my mind into it too, because that's the other part. Don't just kind of go through the motions. You got to like actually pay attention to what you're doing, look to make it more efficient, look to make it stronger, look to use more of the body, all the fundamentals. But yeah.
This is mostly true. There is some truth to the movie. It's
yeah.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, there's they definitely had they took a lot of artistic liberties, and thankfully so. It's a beautiful movie. But it is based, on the attempted assassination of the king.
Qin Shi Huang,
and who later eventually unified China. So yeah.
Kitty wants to know which of the Yang Tai Chi styles is your favorite to perform. Ooh.
For practice, I enjoy the 40-step form for hand forms, and I enjoy the 32 sword. I really like those two. Those are really solid and fundamental. Like just they're real solid. I hate to say fundamental in the terms like I don't want it to be received as basic, but they're just really good forms. For performances though, if we're doing see, there you go. Nice.
This was actually a gift from her. She gave me this for my birthday a few years ago, the Yang 32 sword form.
It's really so this is something I talked to somebody recently about. I think it was a Kung Fu Conversations podcast. I was talking to those guys, and I would say as far as getting into reviewing swords from LK Chen and doing cut testing and things like that, I've never done so much cutting in my life for sword training. And I feel that even beyond the Choi Li Fut forms, doing the Tai Chi sword has been a much more, had much more of a profound effect on my training. And a lot of people don't understand this because a lot of people don't use, when you get those extendable ones, it's too light. When you're learning the form, you're just trying to look like it. You're taking an art where you've done only hand techniques, and then all of a sudden you're just trying to move slow with the sword in your hand. So there's a lot of development that has to happen for this to take place, right? You have to really understand the fundamentals of the techniques and understand where you'd be making contact for just starters. But I found that training consistently with Tai Chi, with being, with good focus and being aware of the blade and the cut that's happening itself, has refined my movements. And to the point where it's shown up in my cutting. Like my cuts are much cleaner, they're much more consistent. And I would attribute that to Tai Chi training, because when you move slow, you don't have an opportunity to hide things. Speed hides mistakes. So doing a fast form, you end up at the right position when you pause or you get the blade over to this side or whatever. But if you were to slow it down, you'd find that, oh my gosh, I'm turning the blade over in the middle. I'm just going to slap the target, or I'm going to roll once I actually make contact, rather than actually following through and then making sure that the proper time is going to roll over. And then I move into the next technique. Like, you really naturally refine the cuts of the sword. And again, I think the 32 is an excellent sword form that embodies that. So yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Excellent book choice.
And Foxy wants to know what your favorite Asian mythological creature is. Oh boy.
Ooh. I would say, what's that?
Sun Wukong.
Sun Wukong. Yeah, right. No, it's not going to come off as very interesting, but I've always had a fascination with the dragon. Just the standard long. You have, it carries so much. There's the elements, it's always cool. You have the sons of the dragon, you have the Yazi, you have Piju, you have Qilin, you have all this variety of things. But I think to me, the one that embodies probably all of the qualities that I seek in, especially coming from a martial arts perspective, it comes from Long, the dragon itself. So yeah. I'm glad. I'm glad it's not like, oh, okay, great. You got the cornflakes
No,
of
I mean
Chinese mythological creatures.
it's almost like the default answer, but it's also the most profound answer.
Yeah, you know, sometimes you deviate and you're looking at this. Oh, this one's really cool. Oh, that one's really cool. But over time, you find that they don't have the same qualities that you're looking for in, you know, the defaults. Like the default, you know, it's a popular one for a good reason.
Exactly. They put it on like flags for dynasties and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
I got to show this off then because Trey in the audience made this for me. This
Oh,
is a
wow.
wolf
Oh,
dragon
that's awesome.
She handmade this
Oh, that's so
wolf
cool.
dragon hybrid.
Yeah,
it's
I got
right on my
the.
desk.
That's awesome.
We
Yeah,
have
that's
some very, 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 very creative people in this group. So
yeah, yeah. I mean, gosh, with the wood burning and now this dragon, that's super cool. Yeah,
and this is very true. It's the reason why it's your favorite that's interesting. It's yeah.
absolutely.
Okay. Last question.
Okay, I
I
might be
need
able to do
over
this.
some.
I have my camera battery or my phone battery is close to being gone. So if I
Yeah.
disappear, it was an excellent. I enjoyed this. But let's
Yeah.
go for it. Let's go for the question.
I skipped over some questions because this has been an amazing discussion. But how would you personally improve martial arts for Chinese martial artists around the world?
So this is something that I find as an instructor, this is like constantly on my mind. There are many elements, and the Chinese structure for arts is not always the most linear path. It can go very convoluted. So I would say having a really taking an in-depth look for people in their styles and look at a very specific and practical progression. Not look at it as learn the form, learn the applications, and then leave it. Learn how, you know, like when you're teaching your students, there's specific things that you want from that form, that you want them to pick up from that form, and you cannot leave that responsibility on the student. A lot of these students come in at the point where they don't know how to learn, and they're learning how to learn through the process. You might have a master in the works, but in the beginning, they may be, you know, acting like a customer. I paid, I deserve, whatever. And it's going to be that journey over time that creates that master. You never know. So I think that if you provide them with the right tools, you provide them with the techniques, you don't hide it, you don't wait for them to figure it out on their own. And then you provide a progression through proper drills, supplementary training, and you build from there. I think that's probably the key, is to make your art stronger, and don't just rely on how you learned it. Don't rely on just having, well, it's this form, then this form, then this form. You as the instructor have to figure out all of the equivalents that they need to know at that level in the curriculum. You need to figure out how to make sure that when later on down the road and they're at this form, how does it come? How does it trace back to this? How can they revisit this original early form to benefit their future, the advanced level that they're at? Like they should see it as the art as this huge puzzle, and you're putting pieces in, but it shouldn't be something where once you're done with that piece, you throw it away. It has to be useful. It has to stay in there to make the full picture. So that's what I would say, is having, I guess, going into more depth, making it more comprehensive, looking at, you know, doing a lot of engineering behind the scenes.
All right. Well, that's pretty much all I got.
Cool.
And thank you from Donna. This has been just amazing. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, obviously, because we're over 2 hours into it. So
Awesome. But yeah, my battery's about to die. So I would like to formally thank you so much for letting me join.
Yes.
And yeah, I look forward to further conversations.
As do I.
Yeah. And thanks to everybody else. I'll find you guys. I'm on Instagram. I'm on YouTube. Just look up my name. You'll find me.
I got that handled. Hold on. Where is it?
It's just all Sifu
There is.
Kuttel. Oh, hey, look. Hey,
both YouTube channels. They're also in the video description, but those are his YouTube channels. If you're not subscribed, please go do, because
yeah, I'm posting as much as possible, or I'm posting weekly and bi-weekly for Tai Chi. So there's always something new.
Yeah.
But yeah. Thanks so much.
Thank you. It's been great.
Cool.
All right. Well, guys, what'd you think? That was probably within the top 2 of my tea time interviews. So I very, very thoroughly enjoyed that. But I will be back next week to answer Ruby's question about the names of guards and stances in Chinese swordsmanship compared to European swordsmanship. Back at my usual time. Trey subscribed to both channels. Awesome. You'll get some really, really interesting, more interesting, information from those videos. So yeah. But like normal, but not like normal, I definitely have to go eat something now. But I will see you guys next week. This was a lot of fun. I hope that we can possibly do this again. And I will see you all next time. 再见。